Welcome to this week's collage. It's another situation where I was at home with a lot of ephemera but away from my studio, and I collected it, took some notes, and plan on creating a collage for you today. So I have some smaller pieces that I have hidden in this envelope that I plan to do some fussy cutting with later. The theme and the color is going to be about red. I believe I have already chosen a title, which I'll share with you in just a second as soon as I find my notes. Some really fantastic photographs that I grabbed, not necessarily using in this week's collage. I don't think I am. Here are my notes and some wonderful text. This. So the notes help me. I'm working with a lot of red imagery, and that's why I think I want to name it Red Scare. Not sure if I'll stay with that title. Here's my focal point. Isn't that awesome? King Tut. This is how King Tut makes it into my work. A scary looking King Tut. You know, he's seen better days. I like this too, but it's not going to make it into the collage. Yes, Who Killed King Tut? I should read this. It's kind of fascinating. But I am going to use this for our focal point. And drawn to red, obviously. She also will be a part of the focal point. It's either going to be her or her. I think it's the same model, the same image. I'm not sure if it came from the same magazine after a while. As you other collagists know, it all becomes like, I don't know where that came from. This little piece too. So I like keeping my envelopes, my marketing envelopes, when you get envelopes for bills and such, hang on to them because they're good for hiding little pieces of ephemera so they don't escape you, and for transporting it like I did because I have to travel to my studio. I don't know what this was. It was this. Oh, part of a gamma ray burst. Who knew? Who knew? It's fun. I know, the gun's kind of scary. Not sure if I'm going to use it, but I like the red feel about it, and I also enjoy the illustrated quality. Again, juxtaposition, vintage, paired with contemporary, it really can evolve into something fantastic. So, let's see what we evolve into this week. Alright, so we're going to do another transparency. Planning on doing a transparency also of Tut's head. Right now, working on keeping this text intact was a bit of a challenge, and I'm not even sure I'm thrilled with how it might come out. I also just want to explain when this happens. See the crease? And I try to explain this in my workshops too. I'm not happy about the crease because whenever you have creases, it means it's not going to capture as much ink if it captures any ink at all. You may notice I'm doing this burnishing with the scissor handle just to make sure I can get as much of that rich black as I can onto the adhesive. There's also a bit here that was a problem. I use the wax paper because it is just easier to remove the tape from it. So I think I'm ready to give this a dunk into some water, and then maybe we can capture this text. But it was a challenge because of the way it's shaped, and sometimes we're limited by the width of the tape. Not a big deal because you can cut the tape into a shape that you want. It's overlapping here a bit. I'm just going to do a little cleanup before I dunk. You don't have to do this type of cleanup only because the water, a lot of the adhesive goes away when you leave it in the water. I probably don't have to leave this in the water very long. The contemporary paper behaves very well for transparencies. I'm not sure why that is. And also, it is thinner paper, so I don't know, maybe it's the quality of the paper that we're dealing with. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it a dunk. Doesn't all quite fit, so we'll just do it in pieces, sort of. Yeah, it's already, you can see the white part is sort of disappearing. It doesn't really disappear, we're gonna have to rub it away. But in some cases, with the contemporary magazine paper, I've noticed that it peels right off. It's beautiful. I don't know if that's gonna be the case right now even. This might work. I'm gonna let me just let it soak a little bit more. Now, as I mentioned, Tut is also going to become a transparency, so I'm going to need to put him on some tape as well. I am doing this all in one space, as you can see. The problem with that is water will drop on other ephemera that I don't intend to make into a transparency, and sometimes that causes a problem. So what I can do is cut sections of tape off, and just to avoid those straight edges I've talked about before, the straight edges of the tape here. It's just aesthetically it may not be as pleasing, but we can also overlap the tape on Tut. All those alliterations, wow. Do I want to do that this time? Oh boy, I'm not sure. I think I will. I think we're just gonna make him a straight transparency. I'm not gonna do any fancy cutting or anything right now. So I'm just gonna continue on working on Tut and his transparency. We have a taped up Tut for a transparency. I trimmed him down a little bit just to make sure he's going to fit into my reservoir. He will be getting a dunking after I take quarantine out of the water. So I'll put him off to the side. And quarantine looks like it's doing a pretty good job. I'm not sure about the E. I may need to dunk the E a little bit longer, but the other portions of the word, let's just go ahead and dunk E while we're peeling away other parts of quarantine. The National Geographic paper tends to be pretty rough in that it's tough, and making it into a transparency may take a bit more elbow grease than with those fashion magazines. Quarantine is drying off to the side. It should be a lovely transparency. When this happens though, and I'm dealing with either book paper, National Geographic also in this case, I may apply a little more pressure and also the rough end of a sponge. Gently regardless, but just to get that peeling part started so we can get back to work here. Paper is again in layers, so I am removing that layer to make it a bit more transparent. In some cases, you're not going to make a full-on transparency, but you're going to get pretty darn close, especially if this is like one of the first times you're dealing with transparencies and with magazine paper. And also, if you're dealing with something that you are in love with the image and you don't want to damage it, So you maybe treat it with kid gloves more so. I'm not doing that with Mr. Tut here, but I am trying to be careful as much as I can. So yeah, you see it's just peeling off just swatches of paper, and all you needed to do was apply a bit of that sponge action. Now remember, if you rub too hard, like I actually did right here, you have too much of a transparency, and you may not want that. However, it is not a lost cause if you did rub away the ink of the image and you're left with blank tape. That's not a bad thing. It just adds to your image. It adds to your message. You can have something else shine through on your focal point. What I love about transparency, and I hope you do too, is that it allows you to make layers, and it gives another message to your focal point. So I am going to continue on working with Mr. Tut, making him more into a transparency, and maybe purposely rubbing off ink so we can have other things shine through his lovely cranium here. So I'm going to keep going at this. Share here for a second what I am doing. It is kind of tough paper to remove. I am using the gentler side of the sponge, just dabbing it a little bit and just circulating around here, removing that back paper. You may also notice, look what the tape did. You can barely maybe see the lines of the tape. That's not a bad thing, but something to bear in mind if that's what you want to avoid. It might not be aesthetically pleasing to you or what you may want to be achieving for your collage. I'm okay with it here. I'm just going to keep working at this. This is a bit more work than I thought it was going to be, but it's just stronger paper. And I don't want to remove too much of the ink. I want to keep Tut intact. Sorry, I keep with the alliterations on Tut. I just can't help it. Sometimes I'll switch to the tougher blue side if I want to get a little more work done, but I do want to use that gently because I think it takes up too much paper, and I don't want to lose the transparency in the ink. This isn't looking too bad. Dab away at it here. Let's give it a look. Yeah, he's not too bad. There are portions of that skull that are missing, but I think I'm okay with that. I think it'll look really cool. Actually, it's looking pretty good. I could probably stop here. The other thing I want to share with you, if you haven't watched any of these transparency videos before, is that this white gauzy material from the leftover paper that can be removed but just takes a little bit more elbow or thumb grease in this case, it should disappear when you apply some gel medium. Just a plain matte or shiny gel medium should work just fine. So I'm not going to stress it too much. I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to brush this paper away, and we should have a very lovely transparency for our collage. The transparency for Tut came out pretty well. I may want to use this blue background, and looking at it right now, I am considering removing more of the cranium portion so we have more transparency coming through here. I may want to remove more in these areas also. So to do that, it's a little tricky because I do want to be careful. I have this rough part. I'm just gonna, it's still a damp sponge, and I'm using the rough part kind of circulating it around, scrubbing it off. I don't want to get too crazy with it, but I like the way it's looking. I can see my fingers through there, so maybe doing a good job of that. Just scrubbing. So it looks, yeah, I'm really liking how that looks. So we're transforming it quite a bit. I can see the ink is puddling up when I scrub. And I want to be careful also because I don't want the sponge to scratch the transparency and make that obvious. That's kind of cool. Maybe a little bit more here. Looks like I already was starting to scrub really tough right there when I initially began without any of this intention in mind. I think this was also where I began creating the transparency. I started in this general area. But it's looking okay. We're just playing with it. Yeah, that's a nice see-through. I'd like to work on maybe on this cheekbone, the optical bone. It's kind of tough here. Gotta be careful. Just a bit of a scrub. Okay, yeah, that's looking pretty good. Do I want to remove up here? Well, we don't want to remove too much because then we won't have a transparency. We'll just have a plain piece of tape, and I don't want that. I want to say something with it, maybe. Maybe I'll scrub a little bit more up here, not too much. Let's see, how does that look? Yeah, that looks good too. Yeah, it gets a little messy. Well, I'll run it under some water just to clean it up a little bit. We do have bubbles. This is going to happen. I would like to try other material to make transparencies in my next videos. I'm not sure how soon, but I would like to maybe try contact paper. I have been told by a friend and also other people on social media that they use contact paper for this type of method, and I may just give it a try. Okay. I think Tut's looking pretty good. Let's give him another bath.